You guys are never going to believe this. The other day I ran across somebody and they said, you know what, Charlie? I don't like your politics. So I looked at them straight in the eye and I said, well, you know what? I don't like yours. Neener, neener. Anyway, I don't know why everybody thinks that we all have to agree on politics. I mean, nobody ever has to agree on anything. And the reality is that what ends up happening with that, when people start saying, hey, you're this or you're that, I'm actually an independent. What ends up happening is that people just start falling within lines of mass thinking, depending on which party it is, and they're not able to think for themselves. Regardless of what happens, they're not able to think of themselves. So, you know, I tell a lot of people, look, we don't have to agree on that type of stuff. We could still be friends. And heck, I'm an American, so we could be allies, even if we don't morally agree on things or ethically agree on things, as long as you're getting what I want accomplished. In the big scheme of things, you know, a lot of people are going to disagree on a lot of different things, and there's never going to be a perfect candidate for anything. There's never going to be a perfect person to lead our country. But the most dangerous thing that I've seen lately is the division between party lines and the fact that there aren't enough people who are able to decipher, you know, the differences or be able to make choices that may lead them across in certain areas, because that is when you get this division that becomes so strong that nothing is ever accomplished. And once things start stopping being accomplished, the system starts to fall apart. So that being said, I'm going to get into politics real quick. You may disagree with me, and I'm perfectly fine with that. There's a new act put forward by Elizabeth Warren, and I know many of you are thinking, oh, so now you're going to talk about a tyrant. This new act is called the AMMO Act, A-M-M-O. It's very original. And there's been a lot of conversations about ammo. You know, why are there ammo shortages? Why is it so hard to get your hands on ammo? Is the government buying up all the ammo? I don't know what's going on. I don't know if it's intentional. I don't know if it's because we're going into war and the government needs every, you know, bullet. But this bill really makes you kind of question the way people think, okay? And I know some of you aren't questioning the way Elizabeth Warren thinks, but it makes me question those who put her in office, because it makes absolutely no sense, okay? So this bill, the ammunition modernization, it's a long one, AMMO for short, for sure, Ammunition Modernization and Monitoring Oversight Act.
Hey everyone, it's Congressman Robert Garcia, and I'm here with Senator Elizabeth Warren, and we're really proud today to introduce the AMMO Act. The AMMO Act restricts bulk sales of ammunition across the country. It makes sure that retailers who are selling ammunition have the same federal licensing as folks that are selling guns, and it ensures that people that are buying ammunition go through some type of background check.
Because here's the deal. Right now, there are no federal restrictions on the sale of ammunition, and that makes no sense at all.
As we know, thousands of people across the country lose their lives to gun violence every single year, and conservatives in Congress continue to do absolutely nothing.
Right, think about that. Thousands of communities that are shattered, families that are torn apart. Gun violence is now the leading cause of death for our children. Look, we just need some sensible laws in place to have better gun safety. And that's what our bill is all about.
This is where I think this gets interesting, and where anybody who really looks at this stuff and thinks it through can understand that there's an alternative motive here. So it limits the sales of ammunition over 50 caliber to 100 rounds, and it limits the sales of all other ammunition to 1,000 rounds to stop mass shootings, of course, right? Because this is the big problem in our country. This is mass shootings. And the problem is that these mass shootings are happening with thousands of rounds of bullets. But the reality is that's not the case. How many mass shooters can you point out? There might be one out there. I think he was in Arizona. But how many mass shooters can you point out that use 50 caliber round weapons? How many mass shooters can you think of that have needed over 1,000 rounds? Most of them maybe have a few magazines when they go into these things that they're not planning on coming out. And that's the real problem. You know, that's the real problem, is you have people going into these situations not planning on coming back out. It's a mental health crisis. point is that, these ammo restrictions that they're putting out there, first of all, I mean, it's a violation of your privacy and rights. But it's seeming that, especially since most of you have had to go through a background check just to own a weapon, that to have to go and present an ID and have it recorded every time you buy ammo is a bit ridiculous. It's a bit redundant. But the mass amounts of ammo, the bulk buys of ammo, have never been tied to a case of a mass shooting. But I can tell you what they have been tied to, and I can tell you, because of that, what this bill is actually targeting. You see, people who use .50 caliber rounds are hunters, right? And no, you don't need a whole bunch of those rounds, especially if you're a good hunter. If you're a large game hunter and you're going out, you probably won't shoot that many rounds, in a year other than target practice. And it would be good if you practiced, because that would be ethical when it comes to hunting. But then, the 1,000 rounds, who buys the 1,000 round boxes? It's not targeting bad guys per se. What it is it's targeting people who, number one, are gun enthusiasts, because now they get to know how often they're practicing, how many rounds that they're buying, what kind of calibers they're using. But the bulk of the buyers of large amounts of ammo are preppers. And I know what you're thinking, because a lot of the media would like to portray preppers as these people who are planning for some sort of event in the United States where they're going to be at war with each other. But 99% of all preppers don't think that way. What they are actually thinking about is, okay, if the world went to pot tomorrow and I had to hunt for my family, if I had to, practice, hunting because I want an ethical kill, I want good meat that I can harvest. If I want to have these abilities, which would be rather important abilities to have if the world went to pot, because even if you have a cow on your property, you can't just very well walk out and slit its throat with a pocket knife. So you kind of have to have some of these resources on hand, and that's how preppers think. Do I have the resources on hand for myself, for my family? How long would I have to plan for? And most preppers just plan for the worst, which would be, if everything went to pot. There's nothing wrong with being prepared. It used to be a motto in this country, but so that's what they do, is they prepare for that type of stuff. And so they would be the ones who will stock large amounts of ammo. And so suddenly, if you put these policies in place to see who's buying what and who's stocking what, then suddenly you have a list of every, prepper in America. It's rather fascinating. And the other thing is that, these .50 caliber rounds, I mean, those are big game rounds. Those aren't rounds that you see thrown into an AR or some of the other weapons that they're pitching as a threat to humanity. You see those in guns that are used primarily for big game. And so, putting a limit as to how many rounds those can get, how many rounds somebody can buy within a certain time frame, is it's targeting those types of individuals. It's not targeting people who are actually having issues that are going out and making these decisions. And that's what concerns me about this particular bill. Number one, it's target. Number two, it's extreme overreach of the law. I mean, there's no excuse for it. It does not solve any problems. It does not, there is no situation that ties, bulk ammo purchases to these types of things that have gone on. The only thing that it does is it targets a certain group of individuals, which happens to actually be a very large group. It's funny, you walk down the street, you meet new people, you talk to people. The majority of people out there right now feel as though they need to be prepared, and there's nothing wrong with being prepared. You could be prepared all your life and nothing ever happens, and that's the best thing that could happen, right? But you were prepared. You had the resources, and there's nothing wrong. When you stock up on food, you save in the future. I mean, Elizabeth Warren and Garcia could probably be the next biggest ammo salesman, because when you put forward a bill like this and people feel threatened, they feel threatened, like, oh my gosh, I need to go buy as much ammo as I can now, because now they're trying to put a bill forward where they're going to track all of my ammo purchases in the future. People like their privacy. That's the thing, is people like privacy. They like having the ability to be free, to be a law-abiding citizen without feeling like somebody's constantly breathing down their neck. You know what I mean? Because most of these people, I mean, somebody said the other day, I was watching a video suggested to me by YouTube. I have no idea why it was suggested to me, but an Irishman guy who apparently is now a U.S. citizen. He could have been an actor for all I know. His face looked familiar, but he was just saying, you know, in Ireland, we don't have this problem because we had one shooting and we just outlawed guns altogether. You know, they probably didn't have that problem in Israel either until somebody else came across the border, which that never happens in the U.S. And the other thing is that Ireland is about the size of West Virginia. We have states that are much bigger than that with very loose gun laws that never have a problem. I don't know where I was going with that. It was just a little side note. The problems that we're facing today, I think, are very different. I think you could take away the tool. I think you could take away certain things. And the people who are committing atrocities are still going to do it. They're going to do it because in some sort of way, they've been wired to do it. And what we need to do is figure out how to way to disconnect those wires. I'm not going to get into all sorts of different things like, you know, ultrasounds that nobody else can hear, although some of these people are hearing voices in their heads. You know, the problem is not the gun control. And in this particular bill, the bill isn't even addressing an issue that has ever been justified within this realm. It's just, it's literally targeting a subset of individuals, keeping track of them, record keeping, and basically building a database of these people, which is absolutely wrong, very unconstitutional, very, well, you know. So it's an interesting debate, you know, what's been going on with ammo sales over the last couple of years, what's happening now. And there's also, you know, people say, well, there's a supply shortage of supplies to make ammo. That could be true too. I mean, they have, when I have looked for certain types of ammo in the past, they've told me, well, you know, we've a lot of the guys that make this stuff have just moved to straight 9mm because it seems to be, you know, what is more used by the public, and, you know, law enforcement, these groups are getting whatever they do make of this type of ammo. So, I mean, it is kind of interesting. You can spin and turn and go in all these different directions. But one thing you can't do is excuse this bill. This bill is a deliberate attempt to monitor, track, and trace a certain subset of Americans that have done nothing wrong, have never been tied to doing anything wrong, although they've been accused of preparing for some sort of unforeseen event that most of them would most likely not even want to involve themselves with if it happened. So there's my politics on that. Beware of people who put things in front of you and say it's to help tackle this problem when it doesn't address that problem at all. On the surface, somebody who doesn't understand these things, somebody who's, you know, I don't know, living in their little bubble in Greenwich, you know, wherever it is. But on the surface, it could seem as though, okay, well, this is attacking ammo, which goes into a gun, which causes bad things to happen. So this is a great bill to support. We should get behind it. But for anybody who understands, you know, ammo, for anybody who understands how these things work, you look at this and you say, this doesn't accomplish anything. This has never been a problem. It never will be a problem. And then, of course, you also have to kind of look at it and say, wow, she just made some incredible sales for ammunition companies. I mean, because now everybody's going to be running out. They see this bill and they're going to be buying up as much ammo as possible, which is why the Democratic Party's always been the largest salesman for ammunition and firearm companies. I mean, they are, if you were somebody making ammo, somebody making firearms, wanting to sell them, you want this stuff, right? Because it just creates shortages, drives up demand, and that just pushes the prices. And if you're making less to begin with, it's a win-win for you. Why not just go ahead and fund their campaign? I don't know that they're doing that. I'm just saying it would, you know, that makes more sense than the bill does. Anyway, food for thought. Think about it. I've got a lot of things I got to get done today, so stay tuned in. I like having these little conversations about, bills and things that come up, and different policies and how they impact us, and just thinking through. I'm curious. I'm always curious what you guys say in the comments, because just thinking through, it's like, well, okay, do other people think that this is actually a good thing, or am I the only one that's thinking that this is just a tracking mechanism?